Okay, so I'm going to go through the instructions for the Literature Circle project. If you're watching this, you either have questions about it or you were absent when I went through and explained it. So I'm going to go through all of the different aspects to hopefully ensure that you are on the same page as your peers that were here when I explained it. So we are doing the Literature Circle project on Stepping on the Cracks by Mary Downing Hahn. By now you probably already have your book and your assigned book number and are going to start reading it. So first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what a Literature Circle does. A Literature Circle is where a group of people read a book and then they have a discussion about it. So we are calling these campfire discussions. So each time that you have a campfire discussion, you will have 4. The first one will be next Tuesday after reading chapters 1 through 4. You are going to be assigned a specific role. So one role that you could be assigned is the note taker. This person will take notes on the discussion of the group. Each note taker must turn in the notes at the end of the class period. Notes must be meaningful and coherent. So you, if you are assigned the note taker for that week, will be in charge of writing down all the thoughts of your group. Another job that you may have during a campfire discussion is the question master. This person is in charge of bringing 3 questions to the group that are from the chapters 1 through 4. They must be how or why questions, and they must be meaningful to the plot. You must turn in your questions at the end of the class period for that campfire day. Your questions are going to be what your group is discussing throughout the campfire discussion. Facilitator. This person is in charge of starting the conversation and making sure that each member of the group gives input. The facilitator is in charge of prompting group members that have not contributed. So if you are the note taker or the facilitator, you will not bring anything to the discussion. You will be there to observe and to contribute and all of that. The last role you could have is a tone expert. This person is in charge of finding a specific tone and passage that represents the assigned chapter. This person must turn in their tone worksheet at the end of the class period. So if you know that you are going to be the tone expert for that week's campfire, you are going to need to go over to the whiteboard and grab a tone expert sheet at the beginning of your reading so that you know you have it to reference when you're reading throughout your book. You will just pick one chapter of the assigned reading. So, for example, this first week is assigned chapters 1 through 4. So you would only pick one chapter. So you could pick chapter 2 or chapter 1 or, so on and so forth to discuss at the campfire meeting number 1. For this first week, you are assigned chapters 1 through 4, and you'll have 2 days in class to read. And then you'll have your campfire number 1 on Tuesday. The second week, I guess you could call it, is you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days to read. You'll be assigned chapters 5 through 12, and then your campfire number 2 will be on Thursday of that week. Then you will have 4 days to read chapters 13 through 20, and then you'll have a campfire on the 15th. And then you'll have 3 days to read 21 through 28, and you'll have a campfire on that last Friday. Can't remember what the date is. And so I will give you, I've spoken with everybody with the exception of the people that were gone today, when they are each role, so that you have an understanding of when you are going to be required to come to the discussion prepared. So, expectations. Each week you must complete your assigned reading, obviously. We will spend 4 weeks on Stepping on the Cracks. You will have class time to read, but you must keep up. So, for example, if you're gone a day or you didn't finish the assigned reading, you'll want to make sure that you come and see me during advisory to check out a book if you don't have your own copy. Remember that these books are first come, first serve. I have 37 books, and that's it. So please keep that in mind. Consequences for the project. Each job is worth points. Every week that you have a campfire meeting, so every campfire meeting you will have 5 points. And you kind of start with 5 and then you work your way down. I will also provide you with this rubric. This rubric is not necessarily something that you are going to be writing on. It is just for you to reference, and it's what I am using to grade you each week. And so you'll get 5 points each time. Okay, Sorry about that. I don't know if you could even tell that I was gone for a second. So you will be given this rubric. You will have 5 points per day, and then times 4 discussions, and these will be classwork points. So there'll be 20 points total by the end of it, of classwork points by the end of the project. For each, like I said, each job is worth points. If you do not come to class prepared, obviously you will get a 0 for the day's classwork. These points will add up quickly, so you need to make sure that you do all the required work. If you are not prepared, your group will not be able to work effectively. If you do not stay on top of reading the book, you will continue to get further behind. This one, remember that you are not in control of what anybody else can bring. So let's say, for example, your question master doesn't bring anything for that day. Your grade is not reflected in that because that's their grade, not yours. So you don't need to worry about everybody else. You're only being graded on what you can control. So on the back of this outline is it talks about reading journals. You are going to complete a reading journal every day that you're assigned to read. So you'll start on Friday. For each reading period, you are responsible for completing a response journal. These are designed to give me insight into your reading process and to train you to become an active reader. This is an ongoing record of your reading, therefore there's no reason for it not to be complete. I will provide you each week with a reading response journal for each week. Now, ideally, we would have had perfect weeks, and it would have gone perfectly with Monday, Wednesday, Friday. However, life doesn't work that way. So that isn't how it worked. So each week you're going to have to adapt the reading response journal. So for example, for this week, you will only have 2 rows because you only have 2 days to read in class, the 4 chapters. So you'll cross that one out, and you'll want to change this one to Friday and then Monday. So you'll have to adapt your reading response journals based off of, what the week looks like. And some days you'll have 5 days to read. Some days you'll have 4, so you'll have to add boxes as need be. So the first thing that you'll have to do is you'll have to do a summary of what you've read each day. This should be in paragraph form, so this should be 3 to 5 sentences. This is where you show me that you actually read today. If you give me one sentence without any character names or places or anything like that, I'm going to assume that you probably didn't read. And then on this side is your reaction. You need to have at least 3 reactions throughout the novel. What are you thinking as you read this novel? Refer to the list of reading journal starters on your bookmarks, which I'll get to in just a second. So that's basically how you do the reading response, and you'll turn this in for each week at each campfire meeting. So you'll turn one of these in at each campfire meeting. So this first one would be due the 2nd, because that's your first campfire meeting. How many times can I say campfire meeting in one sitting? Okay. All right. And then, so at the end of this project, which will be around February, the end of February, you are going to have a final project. So there are 8 projects and rubrics on my whiteboard that you will need to pick from. I would pick from sooner rather than later because you're going to have to be working on this project throughout the course of the whole literature circle project. The ones to choose from are movie poster project, mapping it all out, my novel the sequel, novel recording studios, the novel news, ticking timeline, dear diary, and novel artworks. And all of these are explained on my whiteboard, so you're going to have to go over there at some point and pick which one you're going to do. Like I said, I would do that sooner rather than later so that you don't get behind in working on those projects throughout the week, or throughout the weeks. You will complete one project from the list given to you by the end of the project. You will receive one final workday. You should be working on this project throughout the whole duration of reading the novel. So, for example, if you finish the reading in 3 days and I give you 4, you should spend that 4th day working on your final project. And a lot of this is probably going to have to be outside of school. I think that sums that up. I think that's it. So one of the things for the tone expert, you are going to receive a sheet that looks like this, a half sheet. It's got all kinds of different tone words that you can pick from when it's your turn to be the tone expert, and that you'll have to identify a tone word. So I'm going to give you this as well that goes through all of the different kinds of words you can use, positive words, negative words, neutral words, whatever. And so you'll have that to reference. And I'm also going to give you a bookmark. Now remember, we are sharing these books with Miss Besmer's class and with second block, or first block, depending on what block you're in. So you are not going to be able to keep a bookmark in the book. So what I've done is I have put on here each day, and you may have to add days depending upon how many days we need, but you will write down, so at the end of day 1, what page were you on? At the end of day 2, what page were you on? So that way you can keep track of what page you're on for the following day. And then on the back is response journal sentence starter. So if you remember back to the response journal, over here with the reactions, you can use these sentence starters if you need to. So I'll give you that, and I think that's it. One other thing that I wanted to show you is the video that I showed today during class. It does a great job of introducing the topic of what is in the book. And so I'm going to show you that. It's about 4 minutes long, making this about a 15, 16-minute long video. If you have any questions about any of this, make sure that you ask your teacher so that they can get those answered and you're not just sitting in a I don't know what to do land, because that's not a good place to be. I should have had this pulled up to begin with, but I forgot. Hopefully you guys can hear this okay. I want to play. There we go. Hope it still won't play. Let's see if we can get it to play through YouTube. Sorry guys, I thought that would work, but it didn't.
There are many among us who in the past closed their eyes to events abroad because they believed that what was taking place in Europe was none of our business. That we could maintain our physical safety by retiring within our continental boundaries. To those who would not admit the possibility of the approaching storm, the past weeks have meant the shattering of many illusions.
With a third of Europe now under Nazi control, America still sits on the sidelines. Many believe the war to be Europe's problem. Recalling the horrors of World War I, the majority of Americans don't want to get involved in another European war. President Franklin Roosevelt attempts to convince them otherwise. On September 16, 1940, Roosevelt signs the Selective Training and Service Act, the first peacetime draft in American history. All able-bodied men between 21 and 30 must register for military service. Though Congress approves the bill, it is careful to call it a national defense measure. The draftees may only be sent to defend American-held territories. 2 years ago, the United States had the 17th largest army in the world, smaller than tiny Romania's. And almost 2/3 of American recruits have never fired a rifle. By the summer of 1941, Hitler is ready to launch his forces further east. In June, his armies invade the Soviet Union. By September, they have captured over 1.4 million Soviet troops. In November, Germany, Japan, and Italy renew their military alliance. all agreed to safeguard their common interests. The Axis powers are ready to carve up the world.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The facts of yesterday and today speak for themselves. The people of the United States have already formed their opinions and will understand the implications to the very life and safety of our nation.
4 days after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Germany and Italy declare war on the United States. It is the first and only time Hitler actually declares war on another nation. Across the U.S., panic spreads as Americans realize they have enemies off both coasts. Surging above the fear is a wave of patriotism and outrage. Within 30 days of the attack, over 134,000 young men enlist for service, ready to take the fight to the enemy. The wars in Europe and Asia now merge into a single gigantic world war, the largest war in history.
Okay, so that is everything that you need to know. If you have questions, like I said, please ask your teacher. If that's me, ask me. If that's Miss Besmer, ask Miss Besmer. And we will get those answered for you.